Good afternoon, and everyone. Welcome to the inaugural Daily Roundup webinar. It's a new feature here with ForexAnalytix. Basically, just to go in and get a capture of how we're wrapping up the day in FX. You know that the FX is a 24-hour market, and really a lot of the action generated right from the get-go as we came into the Sunday session. With the surprised election results out of Australia. So we saw big moves here in the Australian pairs, and we'll go on and take a quick look on the other side of our, one moment. You can see we had big moves here in the Euro Aussie, the Aussie Yen, cable, Sterling Aussie, I should go on and say. And we had those big moves, and they continued actually in Europe. And one of the features of the show that we're going to get to, and it's going to evolve because, as I mentioned, I was going to start to mention this week, we're going to pretty much keep it close to at this time, which is 2 p.m. Eastern. And for those that might be maybe new to FX, and we'll go on and move back into the other screen. Maybe one moment. There we go. A lot of the action we have takes place in the European trading. We have a lot of European traders in the chat room, and then we roll into the U.S. session. Now, lately, we've seen things quiet down in the U.S. session, so it made sense that we would have the wrap-up or the roundup around this time. Now, there are going to be times that it's going to be actually run a little bit later. It could even be run a little bit earlier. Actually, today, this thing could have run almost an hour earlier because it's been fairly quiet now after the initial action we saw in Asia, which then carried over into Europe. You can see here, look at the euro trading as quiet as could be. And we're seeing cable back here moving towards these lows again. We'll go on and get into that, but we're relatively quiet. I mean, so we've been seeing this has been going on for a little while. We may start to see things heat up. There are going to be times that the webinar, now, like I said, for the most part this week, we're going to have it scheduled around this time, which is 2 p.m. Eastern. We're going to try and stay on that. But there's going to be times that it's going to be earlier. I'll mention it in the chat room. And there's going to be times it could be later. When could it be later? Well, if we have like FOMC day, and it certainly wouldn't make any sense to go and have it now, in the middle of everything. We'd probably have to wait after we had a chance to, let's say we have release of FOMC, or if we do have some minutes being released, but this week. But like I said, give us some space so we can get a better feel. So the show is basically a roundup, but also can be just kind of like a look ahead for any reports that could be coming up in Asia, and where we see sometimes Australia, New Zealand data that come out that certainly impacts those pairs. And we do see a lot of activity in the chat room. Traders do come in to trade in the Asian session. So for those of you that don't often get to see the European crossover live, where we go in and put together our bias chart analysis. Now, this is bias chart analysis for those that are relatively new. Sets up those levels for intraday, basically to tie into someone else's own trading. But it is they're scalp levels, essentially, where we're looking for resistance or support to go in and come in to a market, and where we'll find, like I said, with the market, we'll start to find some offers if we start to move higher into a resistance, or vice versa, bids on the support. But that being said, I just wanted to go and do a quick overview, also introduce the show, and give you a general idea. Like I said, for this week, it's kind of like a catch-up on where things are that have transpired over the morning. As I said, lately with FX, things have been wrapping up or getting tight fairly early, but we'll go on and take a look. I'm just going to go and touch on a couple of things that they're looking to develop, which are important for later on in the day. So just a quick look-see, saying about the dollar little change, and that China was accusing the United States of harboring extravagant expectations for a trade deal, underlying the gulf between the two sides for the action against the Chinese technology giant Huawei. It also says the dollar was also on hold ahead of Jerome's Powell speech later Monday, which should offer some insights into the Fed chairs thinking about interest rates and the effects trade tensions may have on the U.S. economy On Wednesday, the FOMC released minutes from its last meeting, which investors hope will show what prompted the policymakers to strike a broadly neutral stance this month. Now, it says Powell's speech later today will be something we're watching closely to see if there's any comments from the Federal Reserve or if they feel there'll be a change in their outlook because of the increased trade tensions. That may be one of the reasons why the dollar didn't add on to the gains this morning. One of the thoughts has been that, as this trade issue gets, spread out in the senses as far as when there could ever be, well, not ever be, but it may be a long ways before things ever get resolved. Well, the thought being then is that the Fed could potentially end up, and we're starting to price that in, there could be a rate cut down the road later this year, which may kind of keep the dollar index in check. I mean, let's go and take a quick look-see here on the dollar index for those that like I said, the European crossover webinar is available for those that are subscribers here with ForexAnalytix. We're able to go on and watch it not only live, but when that show comes on at 3 a.m. Central Standard Time, 4 a.m. Eastern. You also have the ability to watch it where they go on and actually post the recording well before the New York session starts. So even if you're not trading European time zone, you can get a chance to go in the chat room. Stelios posts that, and you're able to go in and catch that. And that webinar lasts for approximately about an hour. So we go through all the coverage, just a couple relevant news stories, and then we go through all the analysis for the day. You can see here with the cash dollar index, we were able to reclaim this 97.89, and the door's open for us to potentially move higher, which is towards this 98.33. But we kind of stuck around here, not really doing a whole lot. If we go and move into the 2-hour chart here, you can see we're just kind of stuck. You would have thought that we may have added on to the gains, and we're just kind of hanging around here. I think part of it is also is that there's a thought that potentially as things get worse with China, they continue to price in the possibility of a Fed rate cut before the end of the year, and that may kind of work as a ball and chain here, although certainly I think we knocked a few people out of the box who've been trying to go against the dollar. But with the thought of, the risk that maybe Powell may make some comments in regards to the issue with China, whether or not we'd have some impact, well, that's kind of keeping the dollar index in check right here. So we'll see how that goes and plays itself out. Daily close below this, a 2-hour close, I should say. We're looking at a 2-hour chart below this 97.80. Really opens the door for us to move down here to 45. There's a little pause in here at 67, but really, like I said, if you're a bull, you don't want us to get 2-hour close below this level. One of the things that was a bit surprising also is, and we'll move in here, is the issues that Italy's having, or the Euro's having with Italy. We know that the spread between the Bunds and German and Italian debt had really widened out. I think the widest since about, almost December. And that's really working on as a drag because Salvini's already been saying, hey, look, forget this stuff. We're not even worried about this. There should not be any constraints. They need to be able to spend more. So what else do they do over there? So that really is going to work as a drag where the euro could ultimately still work lower. And what we're looking at is in our looking here on the bias chart, we're looking at 1130. If we get a 2-hour close below this 1130, really that opens the door for a move down here to 110 and with a pause at about 1080. So we'll see how this plays out, but certainly things continue to work lower here for the euro. Really not responding very well to any type of rallies whatsoever. But of course, the big news overnight over this weekend was certainly with the Australian dollar, and we certainly saw a pretty big pop in here, and we saw that across all the pairs. When we look at the cross rates, and a bit of a surprise results here. And we know that with the Australian dollar, we had been in a world of hurt. And we even got past 161% of the most recent range that we had. And the market wasn't finding any support whatsoever. But that being said, we're able to pop up. But we have not been able to get past our resistance, which comes in here right here at 69.45. Came up still a little bit short of that. and we'll see how things going to play out. I think today what we're going to be looking at is the issues with Powell. Now, that being said, let's go on and move into the cable. And this market continues to stay very weak. We're going to go and take a look at the daily chart here. And an analysis that we put on here was that the cable continues its relentless fall, finishing the week on its lows. A value level comes in at 27. You can see the 27 right here coming across. Value level comes in at 27, considering how oversold the market currently is. Beyond is 25.90, which would actually be the 78% of this entire move here, 23.74 to 33.81. But you can see this thing's been on a sell when you look at the exponential moving averages all the way since the 2nd of April. And it's just continued, has not been a respite. We did see this bounce here where we saw it look like the market was going to take off to Venus and then turn around and laid a big thud. And we just turned around and just rolled right back down. But there is some value buying probably to come in right around this 127 even. But once again, it has been just relentless on the way down. And really to turn things around, what we're looking for, not even turn things around, your just initial resistance on the cable will be 128 even. And we did even make much of even a rally here today when we're looking here on the daily chart. Take a little bit closer look on the 2-hour chart, and you can see we're just hugging the lows. Just really no reprieve whatsoever on this one at all. And looking forth here on the dollar CAD. Well, we've been trying to get past this 135, and we just really haven't had any luck whatsoever, depending on which side of the market you're looking at. I mean, you would have thought that I think they really knocked a few people out of the box last week when they got above 135 and then turned around and quickly gave up those gains. We're touching both sides, but we do have a trend line that really opens the door for us to come work a little bit lower. We'll see what happens with the dollar. But really, it's been that elusive 35.04, and they've made multiple stabs here, and we're just simply not able to do it. And it seems like the path of least resistance is going to be on this downside, but we shall see how that plays out there. We'll go in and take a look here with, I don't know why these keep getting moved around. On the dollar peso, and right here, we have not been able to get past here our resistance. That's that resistance has been in place since last week, which is this 1923.6, and it's kept the market in check. We're starting to roll back a little bit lower. If you look on a daily chart, we're above a trend line, and we actually generate a buy signal on exponential moving averages, but there has not been any enthusiasm to the buy side whatsoever. Last chart to go and look at here on the majors is going to be here on the dollar yen. And last week we were looking at this key 995 level, and we were able to go and get above that, and we're looking for a move up if we did get that daily close above 995, said to close above, week above 995. The market's open for a challenge of 1062.80 with a pause at 1031, which is a 38%. Support comes in at 970. Well, we went right there, just right to the 1031. I think we made it up to 1032, took it out by 1 pip, and we have our support today at 970. The low's been what, 980. So relatively quiet here with the dollar yen. And lastly, let's just go on and quickly jump over to the cross rate. And the one big driver up in here had been the euro yen here. I'm not euro yen, I mean the euro odd. And we've seen quite the driver here in this year odd. It really made a run up here and actually took out the 61%. But of course, like I said, with the surprise election results, we saw this dip, actually a gap lower. We actually came back up here to tag up here at 62 cents, turned and rolled all the way right back down, and then we kind of made a move up in here. But here was on the euro odd, we had already run up and hit some key levels. The previous week, remember, we're looking for 62 cents with 62.33. We even jumped up all the way up here to 62.62. Of course, the surprise election results really knocked this market back. And we've since gone and paired back. Let's go and see how this plays itself out. We may make one more little up move here before we open the door for a little bit lower move. But you can see one of the things that we noted here was the disparity or the chasm between the two exponential moving averages. So there's still a lot more room for this market to go on and pair back and potentially down here easily another 100 pips low from there down here to 60.75, potentially really probably closer to about probably about 60.57. So you got, from where we are right now, about 100 pips we can go on and work in lower here. And correspondingly, we saw a nice little pop here into the Aussie yen. And this market came almost right into resistance, almost. And we've kind of paired back a bit. As I mentioned, first inaugural show, really what we'll be doing is it's going to be just the show will evolve. It'll be close to around the same time, but it may be a little bit sooner. The way things have been trading today could have been an hour sooner. And sometimes, depending on situation, reports or news stories, we could maybe make it a little bit later. But it's going to be a recap of where some of the markets closed today, or if there's been any developments. Obviously, the biggest news story was the Aussie dollar. But other than that, like I said, the dollar index has stayed relatively quiet, although we do have Powell speaking later today. So that being said, we'll also use it when we have news coming up for economic data or central bank news coming out of, let's say, from New Zealand or Australia, Australian employment report. But like I said, we don't have anything that's coming out today. So relatively quiet. But like I said, first inaugural show for this week. We're going to try and keep it close to this schedule. But we'll remember that it can be, at times it's going to be a little bit earlier, maybe a little bit later. In the chat room is where I'll go in and say, hey, look, the show's now going to be starting. And that's what make the announcement. The good thing about this is because a lot of our traders, we have a lot of European traders that come in to trade those early hours, and they're out the door by this time. But the advantage is, and some of those same traders come back to trade in the Asian session and trade the Australian pairs or Kiwi pairs. So the advantage there is that we'll have this video posted in the room, and you have the opportunity to go in and watch this video on demand. Get anticipation of where markets may go to, or key turning points or key resistance or support levels going into an Australian data report or New Zealand data report. But that being said, thanks for joining us here on this inaugural webinar, and thanks for joining us here on the wrap-up.